Welcome everybody to my session on the top 10 features for the Power Platform. I am Rami Mounla, and I am based in New Zealand, Wellington, and I work for a company called DXC. And today I'm going to show you how to become a better Power Platform user by knowing the platform just that little bit better and getting a few hints and tips on what is the best that you can get out of that awesome platform. I'm so happy to be part of Dynamics Con once again. I believe this is the fourth time, and this is thanks to everybody that voted for my session. I was blown away to see the number of votes that I got for this year's session and this season specifically. And thank you very much to the organizers of Dynamics Con, which are sort of working really hard to get the communities across the globe to get together and to share their knowledge and to get to know each other better. You know, in this day of age, everything is happening virtually, and it's the way for us to get back together. And hopefully now I've noticed that some of those conferences have become live, so hopefully next time we'll be able to see you face to face and have a more personal interaction. So without further ado, let's have a look at what's on the agenda today. So my agenda is going to be very simple. I'll just introduce myself really quickly, and then I'll talk about the top 10. This is as simple as it's going to get. So I'm going to divide the presentation into three different sections, although they're not equal, but I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the top 10 features for a maker, so someone who's configuring and setting up the environment, the Power Platform. The second part is going to be focused on data. So if you've got specific recordings that you've got in your environment, you've got some data that you want to copy or transfer somewhere else, what are the features that you can use around to get the most out of the Power Platform? And last but not least, I'm going to talk about the admin side of things. So as an administrator, as someone who's going to be deploying the solution, how we can do that in a very easy and straightforward way. The focus of the presentation is going to be more on the configuration and customization side. If I want to talk about the rest of the features associated with the Power Platform and basically using it, then I'll probably need an entire day. Doing a top 10 is a very difficult talk for myself, because it's like choosing, your best child when you've got a few. It's really difficult to really say, this is the best feature and this is the best feature. So this is the crème de la crème, the best that I could see. And most of them, you will realize, are still either in preview or have not been released yet. So keep an eye on the documentation from Microsoft on the latest releases so that you know when those features will become generally available, GA, or when they're going to be sort of scheduled to be released in public preview. So a couple of things that I just want to start with. Nioti seoton. So if you speak Greek, you will be familiar with that notification. This means know thyself. And this was written on the temple of Apollo in Adelphi. And it's on the entrance of the temple. And it's something that was very important for the Greeks. Know thyself. And as Socrates said, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And I'm going to use that same theme for the rest of the conversation, the rest of this presentation, to know that one important key that you need to get out of this presentation. In order to excel with the Power Platform, you need to master its features. And this is what's going to be presented for the rest of this session. So hopefully you'll get the most out of it. A little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I am Rami, and I am based in Wellington, New Zealand. I run the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 user group in Wellington, but I also run other events across the country. So we usually do a big annual conference similar to the Microsoft Business Application Summit, but we call it the NZ MBAS. And I also run some other smaller conferences, and I help other user groups like the Microsoft 365 and the Azure, the .NET user group, and either presenting with them or organizing events and so on. So I'm quite active in the community. I work for a little company called DXC. I'm a solution architect over there. They're based all around the world. They've got little offices everywhere. I really enjoy working there because they've got some interesting projects. And they sort of have good clients around Wellington, New Zealand. And Wellington being the political capital of New Zealand, we've got a lot of government departments around, so I really enjoy working in that space. And that's what my experience has been in the last 10 years. Among other things that I do, I am an MVP, so helping in the community. I get a sort of a reward award back from Microsoft for the work that I do, and that gives me a little bit of insight of some of the features that are coming up. So as I'm talking about the top 10 features today, I'm going to be sort of hinting to some of the private previews that I engaged with the product team at Microsoft, and what is sort of the interaction in that space. And one thing I would like to add as well, I'm the author of Dynamics 365 Extensions, a book that I wrote about 3-4 years ago, probably starting to show its age right now, but it's still valid. It still has some sort of ongoing themes and features of the platform that are still around and are still valid. I guess the important thing to note about the book is that, as I said, this presentation is more about the latest and the greatest. If you want to know more about the good old ways or the goodies that have been around for a while, then maybe have a read through my book. It's available on Amazon digitally or in paper form. Cool, so enough about myself, and let's start with the top 10 features, starting with number 1, the maker experience, and specifically the GPT-3 ideas. So what I'm going to do is switch into my demo environment. So I've got 2 virtual desktops, one that is showing my presentation. The other one is going to be focused more on sort of the demo side of things. So for the GPT-3, this is a capability that Microsoft sort of bought and partnered with that company that can translate text into queries. So you can write in natural language what you want to achieve, and then you can convert that into a query that is going to be used for the Power Platform, specifically in Canvas apps. So I'm going to demonstrate that capability. Let's have a look at it. So now I'm moved into my sort of demo environment. In here, I've got a browser open, and I am logged into make.powerplatform or powerapps.com. So make.preview. I use the preview version because I might have some additional sort of capabilities that are available in there. And I've got a few tabs open. One of them is a Canvas app. So I'm editing a Canvas app that I've sort of created before. And it's very simple. It has a little label called, it's just a random label. It has the text, Hello Dynamics Con on it. I've got an input text, and I've got a gallery in here. Now the gallery is connected to the accounts table. And I've only have 3 accounts: test, account 1, and location account. So if I expand on the gallery in here, I can see all the properties and the bits that I can change. You will notice that just in the corner, you've got a 3rd tab called Ideas. And if you click on that, it's going to have a text box where you can sort of give it some indication of what you want to achieve in natural language. Now, I'm used to doing things in a SQL fashion, but you don't have to. You can say select accounts, for example. But what I really like about that feature is as you start typing, it will know the context because it knows you're using an accounts table. So it will start highlighting in an autocomplete fashion the options that you've got. So I've selected accounts. So I want accounts ordered by account name. And as I do that, it again auto-completes. But then what I want to do is I want to order it in reverse order. So I'm going to say ordered by account let's just clean that up. I'm going to remove this double handling in here. So order by account name in reverse order. A very natural way of sort of writing what you want to achieve. And I click on Get Ideas. That gets uploaded onto sort of a Microsoft server. It gets analyzed, and then a result comes back. And as you can see in here, it understood what I was trying to do. So account sorted by account name descendingly. And then it automatically generated the formula to do that for me. So if I click on apply, it's going to sort of just go through a couple of screens telling me this is the preview and so on. but then it's going to change that. And as you can see, it actually reordered my content into reverse ordering based on account name. So test, location, and account one. There's so much you can do with this feature. It's quite rich, and I'm just scratching the surface of it, and I can easily do a whole hour on it, but unfortunately, we'll have to go and have a look at the next feature that I would like to talk about. So at number 2, we've got custom pages. Custom pages are an important milestone in model-driven and in Power Platform specifically. They are allowing both the Canvas app world and the model-driven world to start converging together and becoming one. So model-driven is where you have something that is predefined by Microsoft in terms of look and feel and what your navigation is going to look like, what your forms are going to look like. And you have some sort of order of power in terms of configuring those, maybe the order of the fields it's going to look at, what's going to show in the navigation. But generally speaking, Microsoft will be sort of building most of it for you. It's predefined. Canvas apps, on the other hand, are pixel perfect. So as we were showing previously when I was demonstrating the ideas, you can define exactly where your field is going to be, what font is going to be in, and so on. So you've got more freedom. Now, a lot of people say we like the sort of the ease of use of model driven because we don't have to make a lot of decisions, but sometimes we do want a canvas capability as a page, not as an embedded control. So that's why Microsoft introduced custom pages. So let's have a look at how we can create a custom page in a model driven app. So I'm going to go back into my sort of base solution. So this is the solution explorer. I am in a solution that is called feature toggle. And in here, I've got a couple of apps. One is a model-driven app and one is the Canvas. The Canvas app we just had a look at. But what I want to do is go and edit that customer feedback app, which is model-driven one. Before I do that, I'll just quickly check. Yep, I already have it open. So I'm going to sort of start working on it from here. All right, so I've got pages, I've got the accounts, and I've got the notifications that are already sort of added in there. Now, those are out of the box tables. So if I click on, for example, the view, as you can see in here, I've got accounts selected. I've got a view for accounts. I can click on a notification and I can have sort of a list of notifications in there. But what I want to do is add a custom page, which is a Canvas app. So in order to do that, I click on add page. And in here, you will notice there is something called custom. And it's currently in preview, but part of it is in preview, part of it is not. So if I click on custom in here and I click on next, it's going to ask me, what do you want to call it? Do you want to use an existing one or you want to create a new one? Let's create a new one and call it Dynamics Con Custom. Click on add. And what this is going to do is open the maker experience that will allow you to create Canvas apps. Now, one thing to note, Canvas apps and custom pages are not exactly the same. So you cannot say, I've got a Canvas app that I want to use as a custom page. Unfortunately, they're not at that stage yet. Maybe once they go into sort of a newer release, they will allow you to do that. But what you can do is use components. So it's good practice to actually break down your Canvas app into smaller components. And then if you have those components, then you can use them either in your Canvas app or in your custom page, which again, basically, they are the same, but slightly different in terms of the features that are available in there and whether you can use the one or the other. The other thing I want to note is that using custom pages is GA, so the runtime is GA, but using components within a custom page is currently in preview, but hopefully in the very near future, it's going to be released as GA. So as you can see in here, now I'm in that maker experience. It might look slightly different than what you're used to if you're using a pure sort of Canvas app setup, but otherwise the majority of the capabilities are there. So I can start adding sort of my labels, I can start adding galleries and so on, and I'll have a custom page created, embedded within my model-driven app. Awesome stuff. All right, let's go look at number 3. So moving on from the custom pages, the third one is Power FX in the command bar, and this is a game changer. So Microsoft has been moving a lot into sort of the low code, no code type of development. And they want to encourage as much as possible for what they call citizen developers to configure and enhance the platforms. Now, in the past, if you wanted to add a custom button in the command bar, you had to do things like use the ribbon workbench provided by Scott Duro, one of the MVPs. You needed to know some JavaScript, and you need to write your JavaScript library, and then you need to refer the function in there, click on that button, and then do all the wizardry that you needed. Well, we don't have to do that anymore. Now they've introduced a new way to add a button into your command bar, and then to use PowerFX to actually decide what you want to do with that. If you're not familiar with PowerFX, this is sort of the language, formula-based language that powers the Power Platform. So let's quickly have a look at it and see how easy it is. So I'm going to go back into my demo environment. I was in my Canvas editing capability, so I don't need that right now. I'm going to go back to the maker experience for the model-driven. So this is I'm editing, configuring a model-driven app. And again, I've got my account, I've got my notification. I didn't end up adding the custom page, but that's okay. We don't need it right now. So if I sort of highlight one of those tables, accounts, for example, and I click on the ellipsis right next to the name, you will notice that it's going to have a new capability called Edit Command Bar and between parentheses Preview. So again, this is a preview feature that will be available in GA hopefully very shortly. If I click on that, it's going to open a new dialog. And this capability in here is relatively new, so it will show me what the command bar looks like. It will allow me to add a button into that command bar, and it will allow me to add a formula behind that command bar. So hopefully, as it's actually loading, so it's loading right now, it will ask me which one of those command bars do you want? And that's an important question. So one thing, the illustration helps a lot, but you can either have it part of the grid. So if I've got a grid with a list of records, and then I've got the command bar at the top. When I open the form, then I've got the command bar. So this is one record with its associated command bar. The other option is creating a subgrid. So if you have a form and you've got a subgrid in there, when you select those values, those records within that subgrid, you will have its own command bar and the associated view and so on. So what I'm going to start with is maybe the main form. So basically, when I open a record, I want to see a command bar in there. I click on Edit, and this is going to show me all the different options you get once this record is opened. So let's have a look at what's in there. And this is no surprise. You have the new button, you have the save button, the delete, and then a few out-of-the-box capabilities. And I've added a new one that I called New Command. Now you can click on the plus button in here and create that new command. I've already done that in there. You can give it a name, a label. You can change the icon that it's associated with, and there's a heap that are available sort of out of the box. So you can say use an icon or don't use an icon, or use a web resource. You can definitely have your custom icon in there. And then if I click on the list of icons that are available out of the box, again, there's a bunch of them that I can select from. So there's quite a few options available out there. But in my example, I just used the carousel one because I just thought it looked fine. And then finally, you add a command, a formula behind that button. And to do that, you click on Open Formula Bar, and that shows you that dialog that you've got at the top in here. And then you can start typing your formula. So if you're used to Power Automate, for example, if you're used to Power Apps and then creating formulas in there, it's exactly the same. I have something really simple like launch xrmenterprise.com, which is my blog. So you can put, this just opens another window with that URL. But then you can do other things like, retrieve data, update data, delete data. So you can interact with the platform in a very sort of flexible way. And you can, that formula can be multiple lines as well. So you can say, for example, go and fetch the number of records that I've got associated with sort of the account that I have, return the results, do an alert, a notification, and so on. So you can do the full configuration just by using PowerFX, which is a great way moving away from JavaScript and allowing you to do it in a different way. Having said that, if you still want to use JavaScript, that option is still available, and then you can do that just by selecting Run JavaScript rather than Run Formula under Actions. Cool. So moving away from the PowerFX command bar and then looking at something slightly different, at number 4, we've got the formula columns. Slightly related to what I just demonstrated, but this is related to a table. So we've got a table in Dataverse in your Power Platform, and it has several columns. Those columns are usually of specific data types. So a integer, a decimal, could be a roll-up field, for example, could be a lookup, and so on. But now they've introduced formula columns where you can also use PowerFX to do this work. So let's have a look at it. The only caveat is that as of this recording, this is only available for Dataverse for Teams. So not the usual full-fledged Dataverse, at least not yet, but it is available in the Teams version. So I'm going to open my Teams. So I'll just minimize this one just so that we can see Teams better. All right, so this is my company's team environment. On the left-hand side, I have Power Apps. You can just, if you don't see that icon in there, you can just click on the ellipsis and, find the app and add Power Apps in here. Now, in the second tab at the top, you've got Build. If I click on Build, then this shows me a team that I belong to, Rami's team. I created that one. And in there, I've got a couple of apps as well as a couple of tables. The first one is called Order Item. The second one is called Rules. So let me have a look at that table. I can create new ones if I want to, but in this specific example, I just want to use that capability. So I click on the Order Item. So you will notice that on the left-hand side, that looks very similar to the solution structure that we've got in the Maker experience. However, all of this experience that we're seeing in here is embedded within Teams. So you don't have to leave Teams. You can just leverage it as it is out of the box. This is the table that I'm working on. It's called Order Item, and it has a collection of columns. And within there, I can click on Add Column. Now, if I do that, you will notice that the data types are the usual stuff that we would expect. Text, numbers, dates, currency, lookups, choices, and so on. But it doesn't say anything about a formula in there, which is a bit weird. But if you do click on Edit Data, then that shows you a view that we've already sort of set up in there. And you can click on Create a New Column, the plus button in here. When I do that, I can give it a name. So for example, I'll call this one Total. And under the types, you will notice that there's something called Formula. And this is where you can use the PowerFX formula to decide what the value of that column is going to be. So I'm going to start typing, and you will notice that it does have IntelliSense because it understands what is the context of that specific table. So I click on cost, which is a decimal a column in there, and I'm going to multiply that by quantity. And again, it does have that autocomplete capability. And I'm going to click on Create. So now I've created a custom column that is based on a formula that uses information in that table to calculate the value in it. So let me start creating a new record. So let's say test 1, 2, 3. The cost of test is, let's say, 10.5. And I want 5 of those. And it takes a little bit of time, but eventually it's going to calculate 5 times 10.5, and it's going to put the result into your column in here. And this is read-only, obviously, because it's a calculated field. So a very easy way of actually generating an extra column that is based on other columns that you've got in there. And your formulas obviously can be a little bit more complicated than that, but this is just the starting point that I wanted to demonstrate for this presentation. Cool. Moving on to something new. Now that we've had a look at the columns formula, now do keep in mind that this is only for Teams, Dataverse for Teams, but hopefully it will be available for other parts of the platform as well. Moving on to number 5, polymorphic lookups. This has been in sort of demand, or the MVPs have been asking it for as long as I've been an MVP. And I do remember even before that, it was a running joke within the team is, when are we going to have polymorphic lookups? So we all know what a lookup is. A lookup is a relationship between my record and another record in the system, a many-to-one relationship where you might have that little magnifying glass in a field that says, for example, an account has a primary contact. Polymorphic lookup allows us to have different types of tables associated within that same field. So as an example, I have a person who has a primary application. And now that primary application can be a onboarding application. It can be maybe an offboarding application. It could be a range of different capabilities. So you can create a lookup and you can say that lookup can have all of those different tables, all of those different entities. We might have seen it in the past with the customer lookup. So customer was created a few years ago in the platform that allows you to connect either a contact or an account within the same lookup. So this is the exact same concept, except it gives you the freedom to extend it and to do whatever combination of tables that you want within the same lookup. Only caveat is, this is early stages of this capability. It's still in preview. And also, unfortunately, there's no out-of-the-box user interface to create a polymorphic lookup. The only way to do it is either through code or sort of a hidden feature, which is not really Microsoft, but use the XRM toolbox. They have a plugin that allows you to actually do that capability. So let's have a look at what that might look like. So moving on to my demo environment, I'm going to minimize my teams. And what I have in here is the XRM toolbox. XRM toolbox was created by what I consider a celebrity MVP, Tanguy Touzard. He's based in France, and he was the mastermind behind this whole thing. There's quite a few MVPs that have sort of supported him significantly over the last few years. On top of the list that I can think of is Jonas, who is Swedish MVP, and he's a big advocate of the XRM toolbox. And he have that famous phrase that says, if you're not using XRM toolbox, you're working too hard because it makes your life easier. And this is a very good example where we have a specific plugin called the Polymorphic Lookup Manager. So what does that help you to do is basically encapsulate the code that you have to write behind that lookup. So it will ask you a few questions. What solution are you using? So this is the container that we're going to put our customization in. And I've got one that is created in there. What is the table that you want to use? So the parent table if you want, and I'm using account. And do you want to create a new attribute or do you want to use an existing one? So I already have one that I've created. I've called it the written communication. And it has a display name, written communication, and a schema name. And then in here you can say, well, for that, I want it to be related. Written communication to me is all types of activities that are written. So in this example, it could be email or a letter. So the way you do it is that you select the related entity. So I want email, tick box, and I also want letter. And then again, tick box. So I've ticked those two. Once you're happy with that, you click on Apply Changes, or if you're creating a new one, you click on Create Polymorphic Lookup, and it goes and creates that lookup within your schema. Next, what you do is add it into your form, and I'm going to just demonstrate what does that look like within the application. So going back to my browser, I've got the app that is open in here. This is the maker experience. Okay, so here's my app. Here's an account that I've created. I'm going to click on one of the records and open that. And I've added written communication as a field on my form. So this is what it looks like. If you click on it and you don't know that it's a polymorphic lookup, you wouldn't know. It looks exactly like a normal lookup. It has the little magnifying glass and it has a plus to create new records. If I click plus to create a new record, you will notice that will give me two options as opposed to just give me the option to create a written communication record. And if I click on the lookup to go and search for something that is existing, so I click on advanced lookup, and as you can see, it's a sort of a new type of lookup. On the left-hand side, I've got email messages and letters, which are the two options that I've selected in there. So really awesome feature, allowing you to connect multiple tables to one parent entity using one field only. Now, behind the scenes, if you look at the solution, it actually has multiple relationships, but it's all encapsulated for you. Cool. Number 6, in-app notifications. So in the past, we had push notifications for the mobile apps, for Power Apps, as well as Dynamics 365. Whereas now they're allowing a more generic in-app notification that works on all types, be it, on a, if you're using your desktop, if you're using a mobile, if you're using a tablet, the in-app notification will show everywhere in there. So it gives you consistency. And it's targeted to specific users. So if I want to send a notification to one user, I can do that. If I want to send it to a collection of users, as per now, you have to send it to each one of them individually. One thing to note, notifications are actually record within Dynamics 365. So if I go back into my app in here are my notifications. I can go and create notifications as normal records. And as you can see, it will have a body, it will have a title, it will have an icon type. So it can be an info, success, warning, error, and so on. And then when is it timed? Now the owner is who this notification is going to be sent to. Once I create that, then automatically I'm going to have it as an option in here. And those are the notifications. You can dismiss them. So the moment I click on X, they actually disappear. But those are great to actually allow someone to get notified when someone is talking to them or when there's something they need to follow up on, just like a reminder that is available in there. And again, going back to the XRM toolbox, there's an in-app notification sort of builder, and that allows you to visually be able to preview what it looks like. And if you're either doing it through code, Power Automate, or even JavaScript, it gives you the code to do that as well. Cool. At number 7, conversation intelligence. This is in preview and it's not even in public preview. So unfortunately, I cannot demonstrate it. But what this is going to allow you to do is record a conversation and then be able to transcribe it and be able to have sentiment analysis associated with it. So for example, there's a negative sentiment in here, negative sentiments in here, and there's been a long monologue in here, visualizing it. The longest monologue was 9 seconds long. And then as you move the time bar through that recording, you'll be able to see where the conversation was at, during that recording. So really cool feature coming up in May, I believe. Rich text editor control. Going back to sort of the form that I've got in here, this is the editor of an app, and I've got a text area available in there. This is just, it could be a text field, it could be a text area, but under components, you can click on that and you can say, actually, I want to turn that into a rich text editor. And then in here, you will have an exchanged experience, which will allow you to do formatting into your text, different fonts and so on. Really cool capability to enhance capturing data on your record. Cool. Moving on to the next one. This is actually a very interesting capability that I've been talking a lot about, is exporting your data from Dataverse into the Synapse environment, into Azure Data Lake specifically, and then Synapse for analytics on top of that. This is not a new feature, but the new feature that they've introduced in the Wave 1 for 2022 is the export to SQL. So from ADLS to SQL. Again, this is not available currently, but I can sort of briefly show you what that might look like. So I'm going to switch back into my solution environment. So here's my solution environment. It's a slightly different environment than the one that we were looking at, but that's all good. And under data, so this is the make.powerapps.com. Under data, you're going to have the Azure Synapse Link. This is the way where you can say, I've got Azure Data Lake storage available in my Azure tenancy. It's within the same region, and keep note of that. It has to be in the same region as your Dynamics 365, your Power Platform instance. So that's why I had to change my instance, because this one is US-based and my ADLS storage is also US-based. So as it's actually opening in there, you will notice that I already have some linkages done in there. I'm going to open one that I've already done before. And in here, you will see the list of tables that you've got within your instance. And for each table, you can say replicate that into Azure Data Lake storage. So I've got accounts, appointments, contacts, and so on. You can go and create more if you want to, but let's have a look at the account table. And let's have a look at the details behind it. Sorry. So you can unlink it or you can manage tables. And by managing tables, you can go and select the tables you want, and then you can replicate them in there. Just a little hint in there. By default, they are done monthly, but then you can click on that advance and then click show advanced settings. And then you can do them either monthly or yearly partitions. So how big the files are going to be in ADLS. So what I'm going to do next is go to the ADLS and show you what that looks like. Or more specifically in Synapse. So Synapse is sort of the analytics part that leverages your data lake and allows you to do some advanced analytics as well as ETLs, extract, transform, and load of your data. So if I open the workspace specifically, so now it's opening my Synapse workspace, and this is what allows me to do a little bit of analysis on the data that I've got, on the records that I can see, and so on. All right, so now we are in our workspace. And if I click on the little database in here, I'm going to be able to see sort of all the different capabilities that I've got. And it will show me the sort of links to the different databases. It's a little bit slow, but anyway, this is just showing you the data sets that you've got in there. So as you can see, they're loading right there. What I wanted to do specifically is show you that you can actually go and browse the gallery and see what can you do with this data specifically. You've got data sets, but you also have sort of part of the tabs on top, you've got pipelines. If I look for Dataverse, you will notice that there's an out-of-the-box pipeline, a template that Microsoft has already provided to export Dataverse data from Azure Data Lake into SQL. So let's click on that and click on continue. It's going to ask me for a few questions. So for example, where is your workspace, your ADLS, what data set, what database you want to push into, and you can click on open pipeline. And what I wanted to show you is what's sort of available in that specific template. So if I click on that little arrow in here, you will notice that it already has the different stages that will take your data from ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage, into your SQL database. So in a way, that capability is already in there. You just have to go and search for it. But hopefully in the future, they'll make that extract from Dataverse into ADLS into SQL a little bit more streamlined if you want to do SQL specific analytics. Cool. Number 10, is it the last one? Admin. So now we're going into the admin area and feature toggles. Feature toggles are sort of one of my favorites. They will allow you to sort of switch on features on and off in your solution. So let's go back into our Power Platform. Let's have a look at if I go into the solution when it loads. All right, so this is my solution that I've got in here. Those are the settings for that specific solution or the application settings. Now, if I click on New, More, Settings, and Setting Definition, I can create a new setting definition. Think of it as an environment variable that can be on or off that demonstrate a capability of your platform. So if I click on Dynamics Conf Feature, for example, it will have a bunch of information such as what is the feature title, what is the description, is it for environment and apps, it can be controlled individually, only at the environment level, only at the app level, and so on. And what's the default value? Is it on or off by default? And is it can I override the environment variable? And for each one of the apps that I've got within my solution, is it on or off? So right now I have it as on as off. So customer feedback app, I don't want that Dynamics Conf feature to be on it, so I have it as off. And then I can, if I want to switch it on, then I can say on. Now, what you would do in your solution, those are application settings. So within your environment, within your model-driven app or your canvas, your pages, for example, your forms, you can put a little JavaScript in there that would say, hey, go and have a look at that feature. Is it on or off? And based on that, react differently. As of this recording, you can either control it using this user interface, or you can control it programmatically. So you can write a little script, let's say a PowerShell script, or just calling a REST service that would go and switch it on or off, which means that you can integrate that within your deployment pipeline and then control that through something like Azure DevOps, or you can build a custom page that would allow you to switch those features on or off. Eventually, when this is going to be sort of available in sort of upcoming releases, if I have an app open, so this is the app editor, I can click on settings, and under settings, you will have features and upcoming features. So depending if you put it as a preview or a GA, they will appear in here. They don't at the moment, but if you read the documentation, they say eventually this is where you'll be able to control those features. So really cool stuff. In this example, I was just showing a tab to display or not display. Just conscious of time, we're running out of time, so I just wanted to skip that short demo in here. Okay, and we do have a couple of extra minutes. So what I'm going to add in there is a bonus feature. And this is purely on the admin side, on the customization side, exporting your Canvas app in YAML format. So let's have a look at what this is going to look like. So if you're a maker and then you're exporting your solution, so this is the solution that we were looking at, and I've exported it from my environment, I can go and extract that just to show you what's going to be available within that specific folder. So double click on that. There's a Canvas app. That's the Canvas app that we're looking at. And what you will notice is that there are a couple of MS apps, but you don't know what's in those files. It's really difficult to understand the details that are in there. If you have the Power Platform CLI command line interface, you can go and extract that information. So I've got a little cheat sheet in here. So now that I've extracted that, I'm just going to sort of move into that folder. So this is the folder that I was in, and those are the two MS apps that are available in there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and extract that one so that we can see what's inside of that. There's a little command. So again, if you have the Power Platform CLI, so pack, Canvas app, Canvas, unpack, and then you give it the link to the MS app, and then you say which folder you want it to be in. I click on that, it does its logic, and it's executing to extract that data out of the MS app. And eventually what I'm going to have is a source folder that is going to have another source code in it. And if I double click on that, you will notice it has YAML files. And those YAML files basically represent what's in that specific app. So click on open code. So I'm going to open this folder in VS Code, and it's going to sort of display the pages. I'm just moving it in here. All right, so I trust this author, and you will notice it has a couple of YAML fragments. And basically this is our app in YAML format. So if you are a pro developer and then you want to put that into your source control, then it is supported to go and edit those files and re-import them into your solution. So it gives you full flexibility of merging capabilities and writing the code in YAML rather than using the user interface. And that was my bonus tip, number 11. So again, as I said, it's really difficult to really stick to 10. But that was the last one, unfortunately. And I am out of time, so I just wanted to go through resources really quickly. I've got a couple of blogs that I've written regarding sort of the GPT-3 capability and the feature toggled. Those are two features that I see that I'm going to use quite a lot. And I've got a few bit.lys that will take you directly to the official documentation for feature toggles, GPT-3, polymorphic lookups, the content intelligence, and the last one is the app notification. So if you want to know more about how to use them, feel free to have a look at them in there. I will be blogging about them in the xrmenterprise.com, which is my blog, my personal blog. But if you need any additional information, look me up on LinkedIn. I am available there, Rami Mounla. Just look up for my name. And I also am on Twitter as well. Probably LinkedIn is the one that I sort of monitor the most. But otherwise, feel free to ask any questions. We can discuss whether those features are available, when they're going to come up. I'll have all of that ready for you guys. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a couple of new features about the Power Platform and that you are looking forward to using them in real life, and that would make a difference for your professional life as well as for your customers. Thank you very much, DynamicsCon, for organizing all of that. This is my fourth session that I'm doing, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody across the globe. It is almost 4 a.m. here in New Zealand, and I'm really happy to be taking your questions. Feel free to ask any questions on the chat. I'm available. I did see a few questions that were asked before, just around a question on which plugins for the XRM toolbox were used to generate the polymorphic lookup as well as the app notification. So those two plugins are the polymorphic lookup manager, as well as the in-app notification manager. So look them up. As Jonas Rapp usually says, he's one of the authors of XRM Toolbox, as well as Tanguy Toussard, two MVPs. He said, if you're not using the XRM Toolbox, then you're working too hard. And it is truly correct, because they provide you with a very nice user interface that will help you minimize all of that overhead. Another thing I just wanted to cover really quickly. So a lot of the features that I described in the presentation were actually in preview, and they are still in preview. Some of them have not been released yet. So I've got a few timelines. I wanted to I omitted that from the presentation because I wanted to give you the freshest information possible. The ones that I was going to mention is the formula columns for the teams specifically is in public preview right now. It's going in GA in May. The command bar Power FX is going in GA in April, so just in a couple of weeks. Conversation intelligence is one that I'm really keen to get my hands dirty. It's the only one I could not work on, unfortunately, because it's not even in public preview. This is coming out in public preview in May, and hopefully it will GA in September. The last two I wanted to talk about is the in-app notification, which will go GA in April. And then the last one is the custom pages, which will go in GA in May. So you've noticed that there's a lot of GA in April, GA in May, and then some that are coming in the second half of the year. The reason why they are stored like that or scheduled like that, the business application launch, so this is the official event by Microsoft where you're going to talk about all the release notes and what's coming up, is on the 6th of April. I strongly suggest you guys to go and attend that. And to have a look at all those announcements. They'll announce all of the April GAs. And then in May, I think there's another conference scheduled around that time frame, and they're going to announce the rest of it. And then everything else will come in the wave 2. I have a question from Asma. Thank you for your questions. They're actually really good questions. I have one question for the custom pages in model driven. Do business rules work on it like on main forms? Custom pages and model driven, slightly different. So custom pages are actually canvas apps. So it uses the same analogy as canvas apps. So if you have business rules that are purely model driven, those are unlikely to behave the same way on the canvas app. So instead, you would using things like Power FX and the formula bar to create the rest of your business logic in there, which is the whole point of the canvas app, is to have a low code, no code type of development. The other question is for Power FX, how to pass parameters such as the primary control when working with a JavaScript function. How to pass parameters such as the primary control when working with a JavaScript function. It's slightly different. So Power FX is going to be aware of the environment. So it's not going to have sort of the REST is not going to have the same sort of structure. So you won't be able to pass this information into PowerFX, but PowerFX will be aware of the environment that you're executing in. So hopefully that answers the question, but it's a slightly different paradigms in there. Another question from Miguel. So for the formula data type in Teams, can that go into related table fields? Related table fields. I haven't tried that. Into related table fields, i.e. From account set value from related opportunity name. No, I don't think this is possible, but maybe that's something that can be available in a future release. Unfortunately, great question, guys. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time. I'm more than happy to take those questions offline. Look me up on social media, on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Send me all your questions, and I'm happy to follow up on those. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, DynamicsCon, for giving me the opportunity to present once again. Bye.